I remember the exact moment I started playing Pokémon Scarlet and Violet. It was late at night, only a few hours after release. The internet was already exploding with criticism. Every video thumbnail seemed to say the same thing. Pokémon Scarlet and Violet is broken. People were posting clips of characters clipping through the ground, distant NPCs moving at 2 frames per second, and strange graphical glitches that made the game look unfinished. Before I had even opened the game, the narrative had already been written for me. This was supposed to be a disappointment. So, when I started playing, I expected to confirm what everyone else was saying. But something unexpected happened. I kept playing, and playing, and playing. Hours slowly turned into days. I explored mountains I wasn't supposed to reach yet, wandered into areas filled with Pokémon far stronger than my team, and slowly followed the game's 3 different storylines. Eventually, I had finished everything. Every Titan battle, every gym challenge, every confrontation with Team Star, and every secret hidden within the massive crater at the center of the region. When the credits finally rolled, I didn't immediately turn the game off. Instead, I just sat there for a moment, because despite everything the internet had told me, I had just experienced one of the most memorable Pokémon adventures I had ever played. And that realization raises an interesting question. What if the conversation around these games has been focusing on the wrong thing? Because underneath the technical issues, Pokémon Scarlet and Violet may actually be the most ambitious and emotionally engaging Pokémon games ever made. To understand the debate around these games, it's important to acknowledge the criticism. When Scarlet and Violet launched, performance issues were immediately noticeable. Frame rates occasionally dropped, background characters sometimes moved awkwardly, and visual glitches occasionally appeared during gameplay. Within days, clips of bugs spread across the internet, shaping the public perception of the entire experience. But the problem with judging a game solely through viral clips is that those moments rarely capture the full experience of actually playing it. A game is not just the occasional glitch that appears for a few seconds. A game is the feeling of exploration, the excitement of discovering a new Pokémon, the tension of a difficult battle, and the slow unfolding of a story over dozens of hours. When Scarlet and Violet are experienced as a complete journey, rather than a collection of isolated moments, a very different picture begins to emerge. Because beneath those technical flaws is a game filled with creativity, ambition, and a genuine sense of adventure. For most of the series' history, Pokémon games followed a very controlled structure. Players moved through a carefully designed sequence of routes and towns. Progression was linear, and the order of events was rarely flexible. Even when games experimented with larger areas, the overall journey remained tightly guided. Scarlet and Violet changed that structure entirely. Shortly after the opening section of the game, the player is introduced to the region of Paldea and given a simple instruction: explore. From that moment onward, the world becomes largely open. Mountains rise in the distance, deserts stretch across the horizon, lakes hide rare Pokémon, and distant cliffs invite curiosity. Instead of following a predetermined path, players are encouraged to move freely through the world and create their own journey. For the first time in a mainline Pokémon game, exploration feels less like progressing through a series of routes and more like discovering a living world. Another significant change comes from the structure of the game's narrative. Rather than presenting a single storyline, Scarlet and Violet offer 3 distinct paths that the player can pursue simultaneously. Victory Road represents the traditional Pokémon journey, challenging gym leaders and striving to become champion. Starfall Street tells the story of Team Star, a group of rebellious students whose motivations gradually reveal a deeper emotional narrative. Path of Legends focuses on the search for giant Titan Pokémon, a journey shared with the character Arven. Each storyline explores different themes, ranging from competition and personal growth to friendship and loyalty. Scarlet and Violet also succeed in an area where Pokémon games have traditionally struggled: character writing. Instead of serving only as occasional rivals or quest givers, the main characters develop alongside the player throughout the story. As the story progresses, these characters begin interacting with one another in meaningful ways. By the time the final chapter arrives, they no longer feel like separate side characters, but like companions who have shared the journey.
The culmination of the game occurs in Area Zero, the enormous crater at the center of the Paldea region. This final section represents one of the most atmospheric moments in the entire series. The environment becomes unfamiliar and mysterious. The music shifts in tone, creating a sense of tension and curiosity. For the first time, the player travels with their companions as a group, with characters speaking to each other as the journey continues deeper into the crater. As secrets about the region begin to unfold, the story grows more dramatic and introspective. The final battles feel less like a traditional Pokémon League conclusion, and more like the climax of a long expedition into the unknown. It is a moment that demonstrates how much narrative potential the Pokémon series truly has when it embraces more ambitious storytelling. When the game finally ends, there is a subtle but powerful moment that follows. The player has explored the entire region, completed the 3 storylines, and uncovered the secrets hidden within Area Zero. And suddenly, the journey is over. What remains is the quiet realization of how much time was spent exploring that world. The places discovered, the battles fought, the Pokémon caught, and the friendships formed along the way. That feeling is difficult to describe, but it is something the best Pokémon games have always been able to create. The sense that you have just finished a genuine adventure. Not simply completed a checklist of objectives, but experienced a journey. An imperfect, but meaningful evolution. Scarlet and Violet are not flawless games. Their technical issues are real, and it is understandable why those problems became the focus of early discussion. But when evaluating a game, it is important to look beyond its imperfections and consider what it attempts to achieve. These games introduce a truly open world to the series. They experiment with narrative structure, deepen character development, and create one of the most memorable finales in Pokémon history. In doing so, they push the franchise forward in meaningful ways. They represent not only a new generation of Pokémon games, but also a new direction for what the series can become. Perhaps the most interesting thing about Pokémon Scarlet and Violet is that they remind us of something important about games. Perfection is not always what makes a game memorable. Sometimes what matters more is ambition, the willingness to try something new, to take risks, and to expand what a familiar series can be. Scarlet and Violet are imperfect, but they are also bold. They attempt to transform the structure of Pokémon into something larger and more open than it has ever been before. And for many players, including myself, that ambition created an experience that felt truly special. Years from now, people may not remember the occasional glitches or frame drops, but they will remember the feeling of stepping into Paldea for the first time, exploring its world freely, and finishing a journey that felt uniquely their own. And in the end, that sense of adventure is exactly what Pokémon has always been about.